Hello and welcome back to the AdRace podcast. I'm Fayola Douglas and I'm joined by Cynthia Mutede. Cynthia is a highly experienced strategic marketing leader with over 10 years of experience driving brand growth across Europe. She played a pivotal role in Cantu Beauty's European expansion, leading the brand's strategic marketing activations, crafting culturally resonant campaigns and forging impactful partnerships that have positioned Cantu as a trusted name in textured hair care across the region. Cynthia's career spans progressive marketing roles at global companies including Nestle and the Nature's Bounty Co. And Cynthia possesses a deep understanding of multicultural audiences, a passion for purpose-driven brand building, and she's recognised as a leading voice in the modern inclusive marketing sector. Hello, Cynthia.
Hello, Fayola. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So we're gonna get straight into things. Get started by talking about your education.
Right.
So I know that you studied in South Africa. How did you find that experience?
It was quite an exciting journey because firstly, it was my first time living away from home. So I was in a different country all by myself. But I was also studying at an Australian university, which has a global presence. So Monash is an Australian university, but then they had a campus in South Africa, so that's where I went. So everybody was Australian, and there I was a little Zimbabwean girl going around and enjoying it with lots of South Africans. So it was quite a good experience and my exposure to what could be the global world.
And did you know back then what you wanted to go on to do? Did you have a clear kind of pathway for what role you eventually wanted to land and what industry you wanted to be in?
Not quite. It was a bit hazy. I knew I wanted to do something with a global appearance, but I was also looking at doing like management consulting. So not even marketing at all. It was completely different. But if I could merge the two, then that would be ideal. But when you're in uni, you're like, okay, let me do this. It looks like fun. It looks like it's going to be fun. So that's how I ended up working, doing international business and international marketing. But no clear cut that this is where I'm going to be. Had a nice idea, but not quite clear. Not as very clear.
How did you decide what you wanted to study then? Like if you didn't have that wasn't kind of mapped out, was it based upon what you were really good at school, or did you have anybody that was a real influence on what you were choosing?
I think I wanted to know what the global world was like because I was always intrigued by the different countries, which plays into me wanting to explore the whole world. And I knew international marketing or anything to do with international advertising from country to country is different. So I was like, I need to get into something along those lines, something to do with that. So that was my deciding factor that I'm going to get into something that has a global in it or international in it. And if I do that, I'll eventually learn somewhere. I'll go somewhere. I'll navigate it eventually. But it had to have some kind of international in it for me to have an experience. And that helped me make that decision.
And do you feel like you ever draw on things that you learned back at your university in your current role? Is it still useful?
It is. It's very useful because, like I said, I went to an Australian university, but it also had a global audience, global students, so students from all over the world. And I got to learn from lots of people around that. But then on my school, when it was school, two of my professors one was American, one was from Australia. So they also had the exposure, international exposure. So learning through that, I got to learn a lot more of this is how it could be in the world. So when it's all theoretical, hypothetical, and I was learning about Germany, I was learning about the Netherlands. I was like, that sounds really fascinating. And now I'm putting it into practice. I'm actually working on German. I work for an American company, and I am learning how it differs in the Netherlands, how it works in Poland. And so I got a good foundation. Although it was theoretical, I got a good foundation, and I can implement all of that. And again, my love for learning about different people. So I've got friends from everywhere. So then I still draw on that exposure.
Was part of the experience also the fact that you were studying abroad in essence? Like I know, like you said, you weren't necessarily in Australia. Some people get a bit confused by, but you were a student abroad as well. Like, was that overall experience positive?
It was very positive because you kind of have to learn to adapt to the different world or the different culture that you grew up in. And that on its own helped be more accepting that it's gonna be different. The way I grew up or the way I think things should be doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be the same for the next person. We may all be either from the same continent, but you're all gonna be different. It's all gonna be different as well. You have to learn to tolerate everybody else, that they're gonna be thinking differently to you, and there's no right way or correct way, that this is the right way, the only way that you should do something. So you have to bring in all the different cultures, the different nuances, and how everybody interprets different things. And that helps. Even today in my current job, it helps a lot because I've got quite a diverse team as well. So that helps a
Yeah.
lot.
So I know after your studies, you then got a role in China. So you moved to China, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And
Quite an adventure that was.
so you were working in market research with the UN for the UNDP. How did you go about securing that role?
So for my masters, actually, I did, which I did up in Scotland. For my masters, I did international business and international marketing, and my dissertation was talking about the business between Tesco and Chinese businesses. So I got to write and study and go like deeper into how that differentiates between the different markets. And you can't just go with we're the top marketing or we're the top business, and then you take what we've got and you're gonna take it. So my dissertation was just looking at the nuances between the differences, how you have to localize, how you have to look at different things. And as part of that, I was introduced to Edward Holrand. He runs an organization called CRCC Asia, and it was looking for interns. They were just starting, and I came across it. A mentor introduced me to it and said, well, you've studied about China, now go and do the practical side of things. And I was like, can I do that? Can I just go and live in a world I don't know anything about? But the adventurous me was like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. And so I submitted my application, got accepted, and off I went. And that's how I got the opportunity to go to United Nations. So this organization, they pay you up with different organization, what you want to do. And at the time, I was thinking I'm going to go into research, marketing research. So that's how I was positioned with UNDP to work in their marketing research. And off I went. And I landed in Beijing, spent a couple of months over there. Absolutely loved the experience.
Well, Cynthia, it sounds like by the time you'd like finished your masters, you'd already lived in as many countries as most people were living in a lifetime. Because you've got Zimbabwe, you've got South Africa, you've got Scotland, and then you've got China. So you're like such a worldly, like well-traveled person at this point as well. Like how was that all for you, having been into so many different places?
It's got its challenges because you have to adapt really quickly. And I think when you're much younger, you're willing to try so many things. And I'll just see an opportunity. I'm like, this sounds like fun. Let's do it. Let's go. And that's how I've ended up in all these amazing places. And I think like I said, I've always had an interest in how different cultures and different places work. So when I see an opportunity like that, I'm like, I'm not going to miss it. I'm going to go for it. Let's just go for it. And then I go for it. But again, it is having to adopt. So living in Scotland, very cold. I'm coming from a whole country, so it was very cold. But it didn't matter. Wrap up and then off I go. And I've got friends. When I was in Scotland, I had friends from Poland, from India, from China. My closest friend is from Singapore. So hi, Tammy. She's from Singapore, and again, I loved all of that, and it was just something that I still ride upon, and I still love it to this very day. I think anybody who knows me, they know I love to travel because I am going to do it. The exposure, I will immerse myself in the culture of wherever I go to because I just love it. Because I think love to learn how everything works around the world, and it's all going to be different.
Yeah, that's such a, I guess you've got a really adventurous attitude, like in that sense. Like a lot of people like to stay with what's safe and what they know, but there's so much to learn if you do put yourself out there a bit more.
There's so much to learn. I always think staying in the same place or your comfort zone, you don't learn, you don't develop if you do that. So venturing out, you learn something new every day. By talking to somebody else, you're going to learn something new and you're going to pick up something, and you can, whether it implements your personal life or your work life, you're going to learn something and you take it on board and see where it takes you.
So you landed in China
Mhm.
and you were going to be working in market research. Like, how did you find that time in your career, kind of just starting out after doing your masters?
I was at a stage where I was a sponge. I wanted to just absorb everything. It had some challenge because I didn't speak any Mandarin, but I took some Mandarin classes out there. I didn't speak any Mandarin whatsoever. It was zero Mandarin. But the office was quite, they could all speak English, which was perfectly fine. So we could all communicate. But then I was like, I want to learn too. So I started to pick up, like, how do you say good morning? How do you say good evening? So that helped quite a bit. And because when you're willing to learn from the locals, they're more willing to teach you. So it made it much easier when I was then doing my research or doing my work. It was much easier. They would become more friendly because I'm a friendly person anyway. So they became more friendly. It did have its challenges that you can't really find the regular food you're used to. It's all different. As much as I love to experiment. Yeah, I think there's a time I was like, I just want some home comforts.
Yeah.
So that had its own challenges. But again, like I said, it was an adventure and I was willing to take it on board, and I was like, let's take it on board and let's try it and let's do it and let's go ahead with it. And I think I also found that when you're doing research, a lot of it, what you learn in theory and the practical of it is very different as well. You write your research and then you sit down and you're talking through your findings and how it's gone through, and you think this is how it's going to work. But then they're like, oh, actually, no, we're going to go this direction. From it, you're an intern, so you're just learning and you want to understand how it is. But then from a business point of view, they're like, no, this is where we want to go. This is how we think this should be. So yeah, you're battling with, oh, I thought it was supposed to be like this in theory, but then the reality is also a little bit different. So you kind of have to learn on that part. But like I said, I just wanted to absorb everything. I was a sponge, just so like I want to learn everything and I'll take on everything.
And do you have were there any learnings that really stuck with you? Like anything that you found out during that time, like during your work, anything that really stood out?
Yeah, I would say localizing, because I got to learn that I suppose those were the times that I really got to know the practical side of localizing whatever
Yeah.
it is that you. So I did work on a project where it was talking about mobile phones and not having like different camera angles that mattered. Also having like a different language, and how even we still had, it was back then, we still had not a touch screen. I'm saying my age now. We still we didn't have the touchscreen. It was still like, like the old Nokia where you've got the QWERTY. I can't remember what it's called. And with that, it's different. Again, you had to learn that it's different. How it is displayed for the Chinese market is going to be different with how it's displayed for the African market and how it's displayed for the Western world. So it's all different. So understanding that you have to localize something, so you can't just take something off shelf and then just hopefully it will work in another location. Just because it's worked in one market doesn't mean it's going to work in another market. So for me, that was the one thing I learned and I still implement it today, because you have to localize. That is key, because that will determine success or failure of anything, really.
Yeah, and I guess that goes beyond like software or hardware and even for other products and services, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because in some locations it's very hot, so some software may work. In some places it's too cold, so some software is not going to work. So you have to adapt it and localize it based on the climate and the conditions that it's going to live in, and length of a battery, for example. In some place, when it's very hot, it may last very long. When it's not, it's very cold, it will die really quickly. So you have to change all of those depending on the different environments that you're in.
And so just thinking back over like your education and your time in China as well, like do you have any advice for people who are maybe in a similar position to you now? They've got an opportunity to study abroad or to work abroad in a country where they don't speak the language. And yeah, do you have any tips that you could share with them? Any advice or tips?
Yeah, I would say go for it. For starters, go for it. Don't be afraid of the unknown, because you will learn, and you don't want to live to say, "Oh, I should have done this opportunity," when it's gone. And sometimes it doesn't knock twice. It may just knock once. So go for it. But then do your research as well, because I know a lot of people have allergies and all sorts of things, and you kind of have to do your research and understand where like locally, how that's going to affect you as well. But then have an open mind. Going with an open mind, not thinking that what you know is the best way of doing something, because when you get there, the way they do things is the best way of doing things. It doesn't necessarily mean that what you know is going to be the best, but take chances. It's all about taking chances, and then just go for it. But yeah, like I said, do your research, go for it, network with people around, find people who've either done the same thing, find out their experience as well, what it was like, and then don't make a rush decision based on somebody's experience. Make your own, formulate your own experience, and then learn from that. You may like it, you may hate it, but you always say, well, I tried it, I gave it a go. It either worked or it didn't work, but yeah, go for it.
Are you glad you made the choices that you made and that you took those opportunities?
Absolutely. I don't regret it at all. I absolutely loved it. It was the best experience ever because when I was living in Beijing, I made friends who are still friends to today. Years later, we're still friends. We still meet up. We still have drinks every now and again. And we've all fanned out to different things, but I've made like really good, solid friends because it was all a new experience for all of us. We had not experienced that culture shock before, but then we became good friends out of it.
Brilliant. And so you worked at Venture Life Group, L'Occitane, and then at Nature's Bounty Co. Was that after you moved? Did you move from China, or was this still in? This was in the UK, right?
Yeah, it was in the UK. So I lived in
Yeah.
Canada for only 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I came back, and then I started
Instead of
working.
Scotland, you came to London.
Yeah, I came to London. So it's okay. So from South Africa to Scotland, from Scotland to China, from China back to London.
Nice.
So all around. So yeah, I came back and then I started to work. I started off at Venture Life as an intern actually, and I worked my way up, got into a permanent role. That was like my first UK role.
Yeah.
Again, it was still learning. I had some of an idea that now I want to go into research because when I came back, I was like, oh, I've got a bit of experience on research, marketing research, but I want to mix it with a bit more brand marketing. So that's how I got the internship, and then that led into a full-time role as a marketing assistant, which again, was a learning curve, but a lot of research. I got to learn what the pharmaceutical side of things is like, what the beauty side of things is like, and that then helped me to then get into L'Occitane, which is on the beauty side of things. I got to learn what it's now. Now I was now getting more into the marketing side of things, getting to
Yeah.
learn. Because now I was now finding out, okay, I think I like this, so I'm going to look for a role that's going to help me in this because that's what I love. So on the brand side, so now I was properly immersed in the brand side of things. Got to learn on how the brand looks like on pack, just the packaging in store. Like working with L'Occitane helped a lot with the merchandising on store. You know, like people when they walk into the store, what are the things that they look at? How do they move? What direction do they go? So there's a whole science to that, which is amazing. We don't have time for that, but another day. You know, like how do people move in store? Where do they look at? Eye level, what goes on eye level, what goes on top shelf, what goes on the bottom shelf. And then on the back side, how does your advertising look and all of that? So it all interlinks together. So that was now me immersing myself into the brand side of things and then moving on to then work for the Nature's Bounty. So it started off with beauty, a lot of beauty, and then supplements, very scientific. So, and then now I'm beauty again.
Yes. And then with the Nature's Bounty, so you were there for over 3 years. Like how was that role in terms of its like nature to allow you to kind of learn and grow? Because you were able to then stay there for like quite some years. So I'm guessing you were really feeling the benefits of being in that role and
I
the
was,
growth
yeah.
that you were experiencing.
I was, and I got a lot of support as well because I met some amazing managers that I worked with along the time, and they supported me quite a lot. And it was like, what do you want to learn? And I was the one who was actually going to say, I want to learn about this. I want to learn how does the budget work? How does
Yeah.
the P&L work? When you're doing innovation, how does that work? When you're thinking of all of this, how does that work? And I was constantly on their door knocking to say, how does this work? And because I was learning and I was progressing, that's why I stayed so long. And besides from the career perspective, amazing brands. So I worked for Nature's Bounty and Solga, two amazing brands. And I was learning on that side, very scientific. So I got to learn the science side of things because I worked with scientists and nutritionists and all of that. But then also for my career, I was also progressing along the way. So lots of learning on that side and lots of support. Again, for me, it's the support that you get from your manager because you're having that good relationship. That's only going to help you to get to the next level. So you've got to work together.
Nice. And at Nature's Bounty, you were the brand product manager. Can you just explain a bit about what you were doing within that role, where that sits within the business?
So it's the go between. I'll say it's the go between the sales and marketing, because you work on innovation. So all the new products that do come on shelf, and then you also work on the marketing side of things. So the creatives, your posters, everything that goes on shelf, all the displays that you see in the store, all those big posters that you see. Back then, again, I'm saying my age, we didn't have social media. Social media was not a thing. We're just starting to come up with Facebook, so there wasn't a lot of that. It eventually came along, but on those earlier stages, it wasn't any of that. So your advertising was your underground. So you've got your big, I'm going to say, those big 6 sheets posters, 24 sheets posters on the underground, and all those small little adverts that you get in the tube. So all that creative that used to sit with me. And then when it came to like sampling, for example, or at events or PR events, creating and supporting all of that. And then also the retailer or the trade events. So pharmacy show, we used to do the pharmacy show. And then a natural and educational product event that used to happen in London as well. So organizing all of that. So it all used to be, so there's a lot. So you've got the trade side of marketing, you've got the com side of marketing, and then you've got the product side of marketing, which you all put together into a nice little ball.
Was there one area of your role that you enjoyed more than the rest, or was it just overall a good experience?
Overall, it was a good experience, but what I did enjoy the most was the marketing activation and the innovation. So those two were the two things that I was strongest and I enjoyed the most, because I'm a bit of a science nerd, so I love the science that goes into how does a product come to be on shelf. And working in supplements, there was a lot of clinical research that used to go on in the background, and I used to love reading all of that. And the science that goes into this is how a supplement ends up being a supplement and why you need it or how it works for the body. So I love that side of things. But then that sits with the innovation side of things. But then that also sits with the activation side of things. So if I understood the science of it, it makes it then easy to then write a brochure, for example, or to write an advertorial and answer questions with editors and all of that. Those two were the two things that I loved because they worked together. I couldn't separate the two because they work hand in hand, but those were the two that I absolutely loved and enjoyed thoroughly.
And so then this role led you to Nestle. How did you find your time as marketing manager of Nestle Health Science? I'm guessing the science kind of background of your role at Nature's Bounty kind of paired up nicely with you moving to Nestle Health Science.
It did. Part of that was Nestle bought Nature's Bounty, so it was a continuation, but working under Nestle meant it's a bigger company, so there's a lot more expectation from you. Now you're working with a much larger R&D or research and development team, where there's a lot more of or a bigger team that are going into now down into the granular or nuances of how something comes onto being on the market. And that for me was just mind-blowing from a bigger scale, whereas Nature's Bounty was 5,000 staff. Now you're going to Nestle, where there's 150,000 staff and every department is different, and you become a specialist when you work in for such a big brand. But also, although you're still working on the different projects, similar to where I was, it's now very much, it's a whole department that is working on social, it's a whole department that's now working on it, so it's much broader. So you have a lot more key stakeholders that you're working with. So it's a different mindset, a very different mindset that you have to work with, but still equally as exciting and a lot more fun.
And how did you find that transition? I guess if you were working at times on similar products, just a completely different makeup of that company, how did you navigate the sale of Nature's Bounty to Nestle?
There were other things that you're like, oh, can't wait to do this, because that gives you exposure to, if you're having a meeting with a buyer, for example, and you say, I'm from Nestle, that gets you like, oh yeah, I'm free on this time. So that was different. So you're thinking, okay, that opens up a lot more doors. It makes it easier to have a meeting with a buyer from whichever retailer it is. So yes, that definitely was a positive. And then you have more resources as well. Opens you up to more resources and more exposure. And the brand is now just open to not just a few key markets. It's now a global appearance. Now you're looking at not just Europe and the US and North America. Now you're looking at Europe, Middle East, Asia, Africa, and all of Africa. Whereas before it was Africa, you would have South Africa only. And then Europe, you'd have probably the Netherlands, Spain, and France. And now you're looking at the whole of Europe. And then you've got South America. And so it opens you up and exposure to just a vast amount of resources and exposure. And this is what we can do. And this is... But then the good side of it is you've got a good product, so it's now available to a lot more people. So for health and wellness and all of that, it's now not just to a limited number of people, it's everybody. Everybody has exposure to it. So again, it's a wellness company, so you want everybody to be well and to live a healthy life. And then again, like I said, you now have access to mentorship, a lot more mentors along the way. You now have not just a small pool of, I suppose, from one department or from one country, for example. It's now a different team from another country that you can learn from, and also learn from how they work and how they do and they activate. It may be the same products that you're looking at, but then they will activate it completely different from one market to the next, although the overarching is still the same, and you're all working together towards the same. It's just, this is going to look slightly different when you're in Spain, for example. It's going to look different to when it's in Ireland. It's going to look different to when it's in South Africa, although it's the same product. It's just going to look different. But then you're all working together and you're sharing assets, you're sharing your learnings. And again, it's all in different times, so you're all learning and you're improving that as you go along. Yeah.
Did you ever visit any teams in other countries, or were you very much based in London but just feeding into teams online or over calls and that kind of thing, working more globally?
No, so my remit was only just for the UK and Ireland. Although I did work with the Spanish team and the team from New Zealand and the team from South Africa, I did have some learning with them, but unfortunately I never visited them. I hoped to someday. With the world of virtual now, you're literally talking to each other all the time, so
yeah,
it tends not to matter as much. But yeah, you do learn a lot from when you're boots on the ground. You learn a lot more about the market, more than you can see from like documents and all of that, which I did share with my colleagues. But yeah, no, I never got to visit those teams, although we still worked together as one brand. I just never got to visit the market.
Nice. And I know the brand it was growing a lot at that stage because of the help of Nestle, but also the work that you were doing. Were there a lot of changes as the brand grew, like in terms of what you were having to work on and things that you were doing as the marketing manager?
Yeah, I would say the biggest change was distribution, because when it predominantly worked here in the UK, I suppose for the UK market, you worked with a lot more smaller businesses. But now it's now looking at the distribution channel has slightly changed because Nestle is more established. So they have distribution channels that are slightly different. So having to integrate that also means you kind of have to change how your marketing activations worked. Whereas before you would have done smaller things like smaller posters for a smaller retailer, now you're looking at doing a bigger thing, as in it's now rolling out to, for example, the Sainsbury's. So now it's now not just a small mamas and papas printers, it's now a much bigger giant printer who's having to print your activations or your in-store, I call them FSD, like freestanding units. That's a different, so it's a different way of working. Again, you're learning. It's a learning curve as well, that this is how you're now doing things differently. So yeah, I would say the biggest change was the distribution and how you did things. But then, like I said, it also opened up many doors working with different types of agencies. Whereas before you were working with a smaller pool of, I would say, smaller size agencies, now you're working with much larger global agencies because they're looking at the global piece. They're looking at the global way of doing things, that they have offices in South Africa, they'll have an office in Sydney and an office in New York. So that way it's just all put together so they can have visibility of how all the markets are going to work. So you're looking at it from one perspective and they can localize that with the other. It's like working together with the other markets and all of that. Then they're just coming up with one concept and then you can filter that through.
Nice. And did you enjoy this time in your career, like that transition from just Nature's Bounty to Nestle and working across those different remits? Like, how did you find it overall?
exciting. It's a like I said, I do like a challenge. So it's a different way of doing things, but I did find it exciting having to change pace as well. You're working faster. So there's a different mindset that you have to kind of now be on board with, and we're like, okay, this is how we're now working. And it takes time. It's a giant of a company. So it's never gonna happen over like a year. It takes years to change or integrate ways of working that you did before into the new way of this is now how we're doing things, and it's great. So yeah, like I said, there's always going to be ups and downs to any change, to integrating into a new system, but it was also a great learning opportunity.
So over your career, not only have you worked in different locations, but you've also had to feed into global teams. Like, looking at your career, has diversity ever been a big factor into the work that you have to do?
I suppose diversity, you can look at it in many ways. There's a diversity of having more women in a team, and I think at the earlier stages of my career, there was when it came to like senior level, it was usually just males. There weren't that many females. But as time has moved on, I can see a lot more females, and which is always encouraging. Then I was like, okay, I'm aiming to be there, so at least I can see a woman there, so I can get there. So there is a bit more diversity in that. But then when it comes to like having a diverse group of people, at the beginning, not so much, and even up to now, I still go to rooms where I do stand out because I'm the only one who looks like me. But I've never let that stop me from doing anything. I just go anyway because I'll learn, because I'm going to learn something. So if I'm not seeing anybody who looks like me, then I'll be the one who looks like me at that position, right? And then somebody else will be like, oh, I saw her there. And then I've inspired somebody.
Yeah.
So yeah, it hasn't been the easiest, or it hasn't, to be honest, it hasn't been the easiest. It's been quite a challenge. But like I said, I like a challenge, and I don't let it stop me from doing what I want to do, because ultimately I want to go somewhere. I want to see where that goes. It has its own ups and downs again when you're not discussing certain things of this would work well if you have a different group of people in an ad. For example, if you're looking at a photo shoot, it looks better if you've got different skin tones and all of that, so you have to look at that as a whole. And then not everybody is quite comfortable with that just as yet. Again, working with different markets, that there's different nuances and all of that, so you kind of have to understand that local market and then change it based on that, but never forgetting where the brand is coming from, for example, or where you see it going based on the insights that you have.
Cynthia, so it sounds like also that you just aren't afraid to be the first person to do something, or the first person in the room that looks like you. Do you have any tips or like advice for breaking down those barriers, or how you feel comfortable in so many different situations, or put yourself out there in terms of even like moving to China, those kinds of experiences as well, where it's obviously very normal that in China there wouldn't necessarily be like a lot of people from Zimbabwe. Making those other connections like you did with people from the very like multicultural backgrounds, it seems like you're able to talk to people from all areas, like from around the world, and make that your community.
I think maybe it's in my nature. I don't know. Maybe there's a bit of it's my nature to want to break those barriers, because I don't like taking no for an answer. I'm like, well, you kind of have to explain to me why you're saying no. You kind of have to, give me an explanation. If you give me an explanation that's satisfactory, then I'll probably let it go. But if it's not satisfactory, I'm going to come back again and be like, well, you said no that other time. Now I have a different take. How about we look at it this way? So I'll keep pursuing it and pushing for it, because if it's an unsatisfactory no for the sake of just no, yeah, that's not good enough. I'm gonna come back and be like, yeah, let's look at it differently. But if you explain to me why it's a no for right now, and then yeah, okay, let's talk through it. Let's when can it be possible? When can I turn that no into a yes? Is it in a month's time? In a year's time? When is it? Yeah, I won't give up on saying until it's a yes. And I think also understanding from the person's perspective, or personal business, whoever it is, from their perspective as well, why it's a no. Again, that's why I'm like, I need an explanation why it's not going to work this time around. But let's talk about it again. Let's look at it again. Or is there a different approach that we can look at? And sometimes there's a different approach that maybe it doesn't have to wait in a year's time. It's like right now, but then it's a different approach until you get to where you want to get to. Where it's now a yes, and I can. But like I said, no, I'm not gonna take no for an answer.
Yeah. So when you think of your time in London, so working now and in your previous roles, do you think that how do you think London is doing in terms of its diversity across the advertising and marketing industry? Like both looking at the people that are working in the industry, but also the representation within the advertising and marketing that's being put out there.
It's a lot better, but we still are far away from an ideal world. But it has improved significantly, and you can see that businesses or brands are making the effort to make sure that it's very inclusive and you include a lot more people, because the people who are probably buying your products, they all don't look like one ideal audience or one ideal customer. It's a vast majority or variety of customers. So I've
Yeah.
seen a big improvement in that. Although I must say that it's improved so much, but you can start to see some brands are kind of moving backwards, or it's like almost like, yeah, we tried it. It was a lot of work, but now let's just go back to where we were or what we know. So I know customers will hold them accountable. So because now people are braver to question it a lot more. So there's a bit of that. But then with agencies, I can also see that I don't, in my current role, I don't work with as many agencies as I used to. So I don't get to see as much. But the few that I do work with, you can see they've made changes and improvements, because when you have a diverse team of people making decisions, you get perspectives from different ways. So what you thought would work in one example of an ad may not work. And that just doesn't mean on the race side of things, but even having a woman's input on an ad for argument's sake, for alcohol, for example, they may look at it differently. So having that matters as well, and you then get a well-rounded way of doing an ad, or well-rounded way of doing a strategic plan, for example, in execution. So having that matters, but I still think, yeah, some agencies still have a long way to go. There's still quite some way to go. Definitely improvements, but yeah, there's just some way to go.
So I know currently you are the marketing manager for Europe for hair care and beauty at PDC Brands. How did you know that it was time to make a move and move on from Nestle into your current role?
I was looking for a change and something that was no longer going to be like, I can do this in my sleep. I was looking for something that, because I started off in beauty, with beauty and a bit of science, and I was like, I always wanted to go back and get to learn more about it, because I just felt like I'd only just scraped the top. I hadn't gone too much into detail with it, and I just felt, yeah, it was the right time for me to now explore something different. But I also think staying in one position doesn't necessarily grow you or develop you into the next level. So I wanted something different. I would say something different to just explore and learn more. I had amassed all this experience and knowledge, and so I just wanted to implement that in a different category. And yeah, it was time to say, I love you, Nestle, but I'm moving on to this. I'm moving on to PDC Brands.
And so with PDC Brands, can you tell us a bit about your current role, what brands you're looking after, or brands that kind of sit within the company you're at now?
Okay. So PDC Brand is an American company, head office in New York or Stanford, and the London office where I work, it's actually in Uxbridge, is the European head office. So we cover lots of markets across Europe. I work on Cantu Beauty, and I also work on Dr. Teal's, which is Epsom salts. And Cantu, I've worked on Cantu for the longest 3 years. I've been with the business for 3 years now, and Dr. Teal's just more recently. It's been 4 months since I've been working on Dr. Teal's. But with we started off covering all of Europe. Key markets was Denmark, Poland, France, Germany, Spain. They just kept on adding more countries, which is fantastic, because that's a good sign that a brand is expanding and it's being loved by people. So love that. And then more recently, I'm now working with the global team on the global side of things. So working on the innovation with our US counterparts, with my US team. And absolutely love that. Lots of fun things to work on. Again, because I worked on different markets, you learn about the different markets and how it all works, and it's different from market to market, which I absolutely love. And then Dr. Teal's is Epsom salts, are still relatively small here in the UK, but looking to expand across Europe. But it's a massive brand in the US, a very big brand in the US. So we're just tinkering on just the top for Dr. Teal's, but yeah, big things happening for it as well coming along. And then we've got other brands in the portfolio, which is Eyelaw for eyelashes. So it's a very good brand, top brand, number one brand in the UK. And then Elegant Touch, which is your false lashes and nail extensions. And then we've got Silent System, which is the professional brand again. So quite a small portfolio, but really good brands in the portfolio of our brand.
Yeah, definitely really well-known household names there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So what do you enjoy most about the work that you're doing?
It's again, there are similarities. Clearly, you're gonna see a trend in all my career. Similarities of working on the different markets.
Yeah.
How it's different from market to market, although it's the same brand, it's pretty much different. When you're in Germany, it looks the same, but there are some, like on your fixture, it's very different to how it's a fixture here in the UK. And it's different to France and to Poland. So there are some differences. And even when we do the activations, like I was saying, you have to have similar models or different models. So you kind of just have to change it based on the different markets, because they have to have, in Poland, they have to have a Polish look. In Germany, they have to have a German look. In France, you have to have a French look with a mixture of this. When you're here, it's all like different ways of activating it, but when you see it all put together, it looks the same. It's kind of the same, but it's just the nuances that you have to be mindful of, the different countries, again, because of the different cultures, different languages. You kind of have to be mindful of that. So I love that, absolutely love that. And I also work with my colleague who covers South America, and again, she covers like Mexico and Brazil and Chile. Again, there are some different nuances. Again, we do share assets, share a lot of learnings from each other, but that I love, just looking at how it looks so different. Feels the same, looks the same, it's got the same, brand and feel, but it will look slightly different based on the different countries.
Are there any countries that there can be like closer collaboration with, like in terms of if there's a shoot happening and this is the asset that's being created, that it can be used across those different markets? Or is every market just so individual, like in terms of how they would perceive different models, or like how the campaign needs to be formatted and run?
So we try to do like one global shoot, but of course it's got its own complexities with that. I'm actually planning one for the next couple of months, so we've already started planning on that how are we going to make it so that it lands well in the UK, it lands well in France, it lands well here, it lands well in Mexico. So how we do it is we get different models. So when we do like casting for models, we look at the different models. Before we even get to casting, actually, we have like a brief. We sit down, we write a brief that, okay, these are the different markets where we're going to do our launches. But ultimately, we can't have like 100 models from 100 different countries. That's just not going to work. But we've got a pool of 5 models. How can we then use those 5 models to make sure that when we do a campaign in Mexico, these 2 or 3 models will represent that country? When we do those same models, when we look at a campaign in Poland, how would those models look? So when we then do casting, I already have that at the back of my mind, that I need to look for a model who's got a certain look that I know is going to work when we're in Germany. I know it's going to work. So Germany, Poland, and Spain, I could almost group them together. There's some similarities there. But then when I'm looking at South America, I need to find somebody who's got that South American kind of look that I can group it together. And then, not forgetting our heritage, somebody who is black, that I know is going to work for the different markets as well. So because we always lead with that, because that's our heritage, so you never forget that. Although these ones are also on the side, but then you never forget your black audience, because that I know they can pretty much relate in different countries. But again, it's the different looks, all of that you're going to have to consider. So you then have to narrow down from 100 to just 5 models, that these are the 5 models. And then you've got a list of countries now when you're shooting like your group images. Okay, this is the group image where all 5 models will be. However, I now need to chop and change. This model will work for this market, this model will work for that market, or these models will work for those markets. So you've got your list that you've narrowed down. So it makes the shoot goes like smoother, because I'm already thinking, thinking this is what's going to work for the different markets, different ways of doing things.
Nice. And then do you, in terms of the distribution, like, do you also are you also thinking about placement and stuff when it comes to those different markets, like in terms of Europe, because I know that's kind of what you're overall managing. Are you thinking about publications? Are you thinking about out of home and everything like that as well when it comes to your role, or does that sit with somebody else?
No, so when I do a shoot, I'm thinking of all of those things. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking from how is it going to look on shelf? What images am I going to use in booths, for example, on shelf? But then I'm also thinking on a billboard in Hungary, how's that going to look?
Yeah,
Or a
yeah.
billboard in Poland, how's that going to look? So I have to think of all of those things when it's coming up. So we tend to shoot in a way that they can be used in multiple ways because, again, my budget is not bottomless. So I can't be doing 3-4 shoots per year. I have to do that one shoot, but I try to maximize it as much as I can, make sure I get as much as I can, and the rights that I get, I can then use it in many different markets. So sometimes something props up and you don't even, because you've never been asked it before. Now you're thinking, okay, which image am I going to use from that pool of images? And then you have to play around. So I sat down with the graphic designer. I was like, okay, so we have a billboard in Germany, for example, but it looks like this. So it's not like anything that we've used here in the UK or in America or anything. It looks so different. So now we're thinking, how are we going to use the pool of images that we've got to make sure that we still deliver what I need to deliver for that market? But usually there's something that we can use in the amount of images, because we take a lot. We have quite a lot of images that we can play around with. So there's usually something that I will find that we can maybe tweak a little things here and there. But I always have like a big pool of images that I can choose from and make sure that it works for me. Because yeah, if I had a bottomless amount of money, yeah, I'll be shooting in every country and doing so many shoots, but nah.
Do you have to do new shoots when new product ranges come around, when there's new products and items and stuff, or do you generally try and do it more seasonal?
I think because for Cantu specifically, it's not seasonal, so we tend to do that once. I know my colleagues in the other brands, they have seasonal launches, so they tend to do 2 or 3 shoots because it's seasonal. But for me, it's usually just one shoot. So which again has its own complexity, because now I'm trying to think, okay, this shoot that I'm doing, these images need to work for summer, they also need to work for winter, but then they also need to work for winter in the UK, winter in Germany, winter in the US. So so it tends to be a bit more generic type of shooting. So the brand, you always see the brand, the orange brand, you definitely see that. But then it's now in the styling. How do they style? Can I use that both summer and in winter? Because I'm not going to be able to do another shoot. So I just have to accommodate all of that. So yeah, no seasonal, but then just one big global shoot with the rights for many markets, global rights.
So I know that Cantu is on the shelves in Boots. It's something that's going to be seen by so many shoppers. So many people will now know the brand, even if it's not something that they've tried, because they're not aware how it may work for their hair type or work for them. Are there any tips about how you're, I guess, raising awareness for the brand so more people know what it could do for them, know how they could utilize the products? And especially, I think there's a growing audience with people whose children might have a different hair, like need different hair care to them, and so they're kind of finding out about brands like Cantu, aren't they, more and more?
Yeah, there's a whole host of things that we do. So interesting you say that they're now, we've got blended families where you've got, maybe a mom had type 4 hair, or it's a black mom and the dad is white, and then the kid now has different type of hair and they have to learn, or it's vice versa. And so what we've started to do is do like workshops, and we're working with partners as well to see when they do like braid with dad or braid with mom, and then you get to learn about that. It worked really well for us in Germany and Denmark, because that's where we tested the market first to see how it works, and now we're looking to implement it in many other markets, because that way you get to learn from the basics. Because your hair, even my hair, I know how to look after my type 4 hair. I have no clue how to look after type 1 hair or type 2 hair. I have no clue. So I would love to learn, and I have learned how to look after it. And that way you kind of just help. If you have a workshop, learn how to do it. It's a 2-3 hour session. They get to learn how to do it from the basics, from the beginning to the end. Even some of the content that we create, or influencers that we work with, or content creators that we work with, it's like the basics of looking after your hair, from just the basic washing, simple washing and conditioning, and you have to start with detangling before you wash. Not everybody knows that, so you have to kind of teach them how to do it. So it's basic, like a basic how to, or basic hair hacks that you learn, and that's on the basic on hair care needs and formulating a regime. But then we also do like adverts. We do like lots of advertising on social media, so TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. We also do videos on there and paid ads on all those platforms. So that's a great way of doing it. But we also attend exhibitions. So Superdrug Presents is one of them, where we've got a booth and we've got people who come over and we talk to them. They get to learn about the brand. We talk to them about your new launches, because they may know one launch, one product, but they don't know that we've just launched something new. So that's a good way of them getting to know that these are the products that we've got. And then things like this, doing a podcast, I get to talk about the brand, and this is what we're talking about. This is our new launches. This is what we're working on. But then we also work with stylists. We invite them over. We have a dinner with them. We talk to them. Different PR events that we do. We invite them over. We talk to them about our new launches. They can ask any questions. I am open to any question. Don't take any criticism at all. I take everything. And then I speak to them about any question, anything that they've heard. I'm there, I will answer it, and I'll make sure that they're satisfied with the answer that I give them. Even if I don't know the answer, I will go back, do some research, and then come back to them and tell them, because I want to make sure that they have, authentic information, the latest information about the brand. From the brand itself. That's the best way of learning about it. So there's a lot that we do, so much that we do, and I work with a comms team, a brilliant comms team that supports with all of this.
Do you find any one marketing channel more effective than any of the others, or do they all work together well? Like, is there anything that you're pulling back from, or putting more effort into?
The thing is, they all work together, but yeah, absolutely. There's one where we're pulling off like paid media. We're shifting our spend from one platform to the other. I don't know if I'm allowed to say which one, but anyway, we're shifting our spend from one platform to the other, just because we tested it a couple of months ago. Then we saw, okay, we actually had a bit more of a return from that, and people responded a lot more to that platform. So we've kind of shifted to that platform. Again, it changes. It may work now. Next year, you start the year, it's changed completely, because algorithms change and all of that. So then you have to look at all of that again. But what I see works most for this category, for Cantu, is doing the face-to-face. Because then that helps consumers to ask. Again, there's a lot on social media that is probably misleading or not true. So if you are talking to your consumers face to face, they can ask all those questions. That I saw this on social media. Is this true, or is this correct, or anything like that? But then you get to talk to them and you explain what it is. But then they also get to touch and feel the products, because now you're face to face. That for me works best, because it's every marketer will tell you the hardest job for a marketer is to get a consumer to try a product. But if you're face to face, they can get to try it, they can smell it, they can feel the consistency and all of that. So that works a lot more than the paid ads that we do. So you get the visibility, but then they're like, because they're bombarded. I mean, we're all consumers at the end of the day. How many ads do we see and how many do we recall? So getting that face to face. So we try to do a lot more events, so we can get to see and speak to our consumers a lot more. So that for me works a lot more. And again, too many things. I think based on the research that we've done, and when we see where do people get their information from, it's usually family and stylists. When you're sitting and your hairdresser is doing your hair, that's the best way that you get to know that, okay, this product works. And so if you work with them and help you with your development, or even with your launches, and then if they believe in something, which you hope they do, they believe in your product, they're likely to push that through more so than the ads that you're going to do, because it's coming from a place of experts. It's an expert who's tried your product, they believe in it, so they're only going to tell you the best, so you're only going to use the best.
And thinking about the biggest challenge for the hair care, health and beauty marketing sector at the moment, like, what do you think that is? What are people finding most difficult across the sector in terms of communicating the messages that they have to share about their brands?
I would say, firstly, consumers are bombarded with so much. So getting through all of that, that's a challenge of its own, because this one is saying mine is better than this one. But I also think now we're going into a territory where everyone is like, "Ah, it's 10 times more moisturizing, or it's last gives you moisture for 72 hours, that kind of thing." So everybody is going to say that. But my experience is going to be different. If you've done the proper testing, then you should get the different results, because every hair is going to be different. Every experience is going to be different. So for a consumer, and I've seen this with lots of people, they know I work for Cantu, so they're going to ask me. And I get this all the time. Family function, somebody comes up with a picture. It's like, do you think this is true? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I tell them what the general thing, because I never want to bash a brand. No, I don't want to do that, because I don't know what they're doing. I don't want to do that. And I don't want to ride on that for our brand. I'll always be authentic with any brand. But I just have to sift through and be like, okay, if I'm a consumer, well, how am I going to perceive this? So I try to explain to them in the most general way that I can. But it's still very confusing. And I think what we need to do is simplify it, make it as simple as possible. So somebody, when they see that, they'll be like, okay, I get that. Okay, I can see that. I can totally get that. Oh, this is the regime. And I think the other thing that we don't help ourselves with is we don't create simple regimes that somebody can just say, my hair is this, let me follow this, I pick that, and let me go with it. Because now you've got, my hair is breaking, oh, I need a mask that says break for breakage, but then I also need moisture, and that's something else. I need that for moisture. Oh, but then I also need hydration. Now I need to pick something for hydration. Oh, but then I need something for shine. Okay, now I'm going to have to pick for shine. I know there's no one fits all, there isn't that, but we just need to make it much more simpler for the consumer to just go on shelf, be like, okay, I need that, I need this, and I need that, and then they pick that, and then off they go. But I know they're being pulled here, being pulled there. It's a competition. It's a tough competition for everybody. We're all fighting for the same, that one consumer, we're all fighting for it. And consumers will shop around anyway. They're going to shop, this works for me, they're going to pick that. That works for me, I'm going to pick that. Then they go off. So it's that same aisle, they're picking 4 different products from 4 different brands. And that's how it works for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I want them for myself. Can you just come to me? Can you forget everybody else? Just come and pick Cantu. That's all.
Yeah, you're definitely thinking that there's a way that you can serve all of those needs, but people's routines often include products from different brands and different price points as well. Sometimes they're like, oh, I can really scrimp on this and not spend a lot, and then buy the luxury shampoos or conditioners or like moisturizing products and stuff.
But like I said, I would want all of them to just stay with me, but I have to be realistic. Yes, I've told you this is what you need, and my routine says you need to use a Cantu shampoo all the way to the end until you style. But I know they're not gonna do that. It's friendly. Let's put it this way: it's friendly competition, but I want them all for me. And again, it depends with the hairstyle, because now I'm in a protective style, so I'm gonna use completely different products, completely. And then when my hair is out and it's straight, those are different products. And then when I'm doing a wash and go, completely different products. So I'm gonna have 20 different products that I'm going to be using for the different hairstyles that I've got, and different seasons as well.
Brilliant. And so before we end things here, Cynthia, can I find out, like, what are your hopes? Like, where do you hope to be with Cantu and the brand a year from now? What are you hoping to see happen across the sector a year from now?
Right, from a brand perspective, global dominance, that's what I want for Cantu. Everywhere, wherever you go, you see Cantu. And then wherever you're thinking, oh, my hair needs a bit of whatever that is, you think Cantu. That is what I want, global dominance. And accessibility, again, that's a big thing for Cantu. I want it to be accessible to anybody and everybody, wherever you are, any part of the world. So that is what I want, long term. But ultimately, that's what I want for the brand. We've got a couple of things that are in the works. I can't say just yet, but we've got a couple of things in the works. I'm looking forward to that launch, and that's going to be our biggest launch yet. So watch the space. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then from a category industry point of view. I've always wanted to be a mentor, and that's how I got into some of this. And I've met amazing Maria McDowell from Lollipop, amazing lady. I work with her on Cantu on mentoring. It's something that's very personal to me because when I was starting, I really struggled to find a mentor. And until I found one with some amazing mentors, and I've worked with them, and relationships evolved, and I've still got some to this very day. And I would love to be that mentor for the upcoming you marketeers who can see me and be like, I want to be her too. So I would love to see that. And I hope I can be the voice or the face that eventually people be like, yeah, I saw her a few years ago. So that's what I'm aiming to be. If I can be a mentor for anybody who's coming up in the industry, in marketing or brand management, I would absolutely love that. So for me, that's a personal thing to me. It doesn't matter what company I work for, but that's a personal thing for me. I always wanted to do it, and I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to keep working with Maria. Lollipop Mentoring as a mentor for that as well, supporting that.
Yes, that sounds nice, very inspirational as well. Like just wanting to give back and being able to take that time to help elevate other people, I think is a great thing to be able to do. And just thinking about the industry, if you could put one thing at the top of people's to-do list, at the top of their radar that we need to be addressing as marketers, what would that be?
Wow, that's a tough question.
What do we need to,
get right
working on? Yeah, what do we need to start thinking about?
To be honest, I think the topic of at the moment, it's AI. Everything is all about AI. Don't look at AI as an enemy, but look at it as an acquaintance. Because if we're going to have to work with it, it's here. It's probably not going to go away. It's not going to go away. So work with it and embrace it and learn from it and see how you can work with it, because that can only elevate you. If you see it as an enemy, you're going to be left behind, and everything is going to be moving towards that. So I know it's got its problems and all of that, but just work with it. And I just think that's something that we can all get on board with, like right now, and then just make it work.
Brilliant. And Cynthia, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you? Is it best to find you on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is the best one. So just get in touch with me on LinkedIn. Look for me. I do try to respond to everything. I do get a flood of requests and stuff, but I will get back to you. So yeah, LinkedIn is the best.
Brilliant. And I can't wait to see what's coming next for Cantu as well, that big launch that's coming up.
Watch the space. It's exciting. It's going to be exciting. So watch the space. I'm excited too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.